Okay, in this next step, we're going to use MATLAB and SPM12 to view the T1, T2, and EPI images that we just converted from DICOM to Nifty. And it's a good habit to do this, to always open up the files for each subject so you can inspect it visually to see if there are any problems or if any errors in the data collected before you even go ahead and process them. Because you could always process them and not look at the data, and then in the end there will be errors, and that will be a serious problem later on. So always good to make it a habit to use your eyes to see the images. They are images after all, they are pictures, so they should make sense to you visually. To do that, we're going to go here in the SPM menu and click on Display. And if you do it right, there will be a window that will appear called the Select Image window. And you want to navigate. Let's take a look at the Y01 Nifty images that we did. Now, to go to that folder, let me familiarize you with this interface first. Here you have the current directory. All right. You can also type which directory you want by typing the path here. But we won't use that for now. And also, there's some convenient scroll down bars here for you to select if you want to go up, if you want to go to the previous directory. You can go ahead and open these drop down menus here. But the key navigation is going to happen here. When you see these two dots, what it means that is if you click it once, you will go to the higher directory, and if you want to go to the REP project folder, you click it once and it will go back down. It's important to know that here you only have to click these once in order to go up or to go down. In this MATLAB interface, clicking twice will make you go up twice. Clicking twice to go down will make you go down 2 levels. So that's a habit you have to get used to. So in MATLAB, we click this selection mode requires you to only click once. So I want to go navigate to the Y01 Nifty folder. So I'm going to click Data once, and then click Raw Nifty once, and then I'm going to click Subject once, and then Y01. And you'll see that all the Nifty files are going to be displayed here. Okay, you can also expand this window if you want to see it with a more complete view. You also notice that the directory path updates as you navigate the file structure. So these are all the files here, and it will be helpful to know also that the files have some weird names here. So if we just focus on the T1 image, that's usually the first one we want to inspect, the T1 structural white matter, gray matter image. You'll notice that there's these file names, all right, of the original Nifty files, and then they add a comma 1. What this means is that if your file is one file, but in that file there may be different frames. And for frames, it will come in handy when we talk about the EPI images. But for a T1 image, it's just good to know that there's really only one frame. It's one 3D image in the T1 image. So the frame here doesn't matter. It's just comma 1. And if we go to an image like the EPI images later on, we'll see the frame becoming more meaningful. But for now, just to view the T1 image, let's just go ahead and select that, click on it once, and it will be selected, and it will appear here, and it will tell you that you selected one file, and the file is this T1 frame 1. All right? And once you're done that, you can click Done, and you'll see that SPM will show you the subject's T1 image right here in the middle of the screen. And it looks a bit dark because what SPM graphics does is to show you kind of like the mean intensity. If you want to see a brighter image, you can go ahead and click around, and it will adjust its intensity as you have different distributions of intensities of the images on your screen. So go ahead and navigate. You can in fact click in this view and then drag up and down to see the changes in the axial view or the transverse view. If you're in this view and then you go left and right, you will be navigating through the sagittal view. And if you want to go through the coronal view, you click on another window and then you drag left and right. So what we're doing here is we're inspecting the T1 image to see if this subject is normal. There are no lesions, no weird brain structures or anything. All right, and also that the head orientation is more or less well behaved, like the brain is located in the middle of the screen. And also remember the AC-PC line, all right, that this subject has the image sort of in the plane of the AC and the PC. In this case, it looks pretty okay. And then also you want to see that the brain is sort of not rotated too much to the left or rotated too much to the right or angled, in this way, or too much pitch or too much down. So in other words, that the slice placement that we talked about last class, that the slice placement was done pretty well. Otherwise, we will have to adjust. We will have to do some rotations and reorientations. We won't worry about that, but that will, if we need to do any reorientation, we will be using these buttons here, but for now, let's not worry about that, okay? Some other things to note are some details about this file. So when it opens this image, we will notice that this image, it gives us some information that the T1 image has dimensions 192 by 192 by 192. That means that this is the X dimension, Y, and Z dimensions. So in the X dimension, there are 192 voxels. 192 voxels in the Y dimension, and 192 voxels in the Z dimension. All right, so it's a pretty cubic 3D volume here. And the next important thing is each voxel is 1.25 millimeters in size by 1.25 by 1.25. So it's again a cubic voxel, and we call this isovoxel. All right, because it is the same size, same dimension in all the three dimensions. There are some other details here, like the echo time, the total acquisition time, and then also some orientation matrices that will be important to know in principle later on, but for now we won't have to worry about it. So it's just good here to inspect your image and to scroll through to see that this T1 image is behaving okay. And we know it's a T1 image because the gray is gray and the white matter is white. All right, now let's switch to see a T2 image, the other structural image that we acquired. To do that, we go ahead and click Display, and the window will appear also here. Again, we're going to navigate to the Subjects folder, and because I did that before, it's going to have the history listed in the previous drop-down menu. So I'm just going to go ahead and select that. And then select the T2 image. And again, the T2 image is one 3D volume at this point. So the frames is meaningless right now. I'm going to click Done. And you can see that this is different, right? Here, the white matter is dark, and the gray matter is somewhat on the more intense side. And you can scroll through the axial view. You can see that the axial view is pretty nice and sharp. But if you take a look at the coronal view and the sagittal view, they look pretty horrible, right? So that's because the T2 image was acquired in the sagittal plane. And also, you'll notice, if you go to the dimensions, there's 256 by 256 voxels in the X and Y plane, but there's only 32 voxels in the Z plane. In other words, there are 32 slices, and each slice has 256 by 256 resolution. This is unlike the T1 just now, where you had 192 in all three directions. So all three directions look equally nice, but here it will only look nice in the XY plane, which is the transverse plane, but it will look horrible or less with less resolution in any view that has the Z plane. So that's this view and also this view. And you will note also that the resolution of the XY plane is much higher, 0.8 by 0.8. The negative sign here is about which is the left to right direction. Okay, so if it's negative, I think it would be from the left to the right, or if it's positive, then it's right to the left. But that's not so important now. The important thing is that the resolution is 0.8 in the XY plane, but it is 4.4 millimeters, much worse in the Z plane. Remember, the T2 is acquired in a coplanar manner to the EPI images. In other words, the ACPC geometry and all that was done so that the T2 are in line, the 32 slices of the T2 are in the same location as the 32 slices that we'll see in the EPI, so that we can match, we can gain the benefit of the temporal resolution and the spatial resolutions of the two types of images when we combine them together. All right, and so finally, we're going to take a look at the EPI image. Click Display. And we're going to navigate to the Y01. And then we're going to open Rep 1 Series 23. All right, now, in this case, note that the EPI is a 4D volume. So this is just going to be frame 1. All right, if I select this, I'm just going to see the first 3D volume of the EPI. There are 150 volumes in this one EPI file, and I'm going to, if I select this now, I'm only going to see the first volume out of the 150 volumes. Let's go ahead and do that first, and we'll see what happens. First thing you'll notice is that the EPI is not a very clear image at all, even in the axial plane. It is acquired in a 64 by 64 by 32 dimension matrix, and then the resolution is 3.44 mm by 3.44 mm by 4.4. All right, and you'll see if you scroll through that this resolution is not very good at all. Because remember, in EPI, what we're doing is we're trading off a little bit of the spatial resolution so that we increase the speed of the acquisition, and then we can get temporal information, all right? Changes in the Bose signal, at least in the order of seconds. But this is okay. So this looks like this EPI is relatively well behaved, but note that this is just volume 1. What if I want to see volume 2? Well, I'm going to have to take a look at this by opening the display function again, and then going to the same EPI file, but this time I'm going to look for frame. I'm going to change the frame here to frame 2, and I'm going to hit enter, and you'll see that only images that have the second frame will be filtered here. So the T1 and T2 will drop out. They don't have more than one frame, so you won't be able to select them. But you do have a second frame for the Rep 1 and Rep 2 series. So I'm going to go ahead and click second frame. All right, and click done. And it pretty much looks the same. You don't expect to be able to visually see anything much different between the first and second frames of the EPI. All right, but this is just to introduce to you the function so that you will be able to see from one frame to the next. All right, so this concludes the use of the display function. And next, we will use the check reg function. That will be very useful for also some advanced visualization usages.